Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I'm with Jamie. Say what up.
Hey, thanks for
Uh,
having me.
so I'm so excited to have you here. I found you on Instagram. You're a martial artist, and I wanted to talk to you because you have really cool background and story in your martial arts
Mm,
journey, but also you've been thinking about maybe doing more than personal training in martial arts and
mm,
thinking about opening up a school. So I want to hear your thought process behind that, and maybe we can dig deeper and see because
sure.
maybe if either A, I can convince you, or B,
Mhm.
point you the opposite direction and say run.
Okay.
But yeah, because I'm always curious, like why people make the decision to open up a
Mhm.
martial arts business and why people don't. So I think you could pick my brain on that and see where you want to go from here. But tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm retired MMA fighter, single mom living out of Philly, and I do a lot of work in advocacy and the nonprofit sectors currently.
Okay, great. So you said you're an MMA fighter. So how long have you been fighting in MMA?
I started training around 20 years ago. I had fallen in love with kickboxing and boxing, and then transitioned to MMA over the years. I started training when I was 19, be 39 in November. So I was at it for quite a while. I ended up retiring last year due to a knee injury. I've had quite the journey with surgeries. I've had two ACL surgeries, meniscus repair. I realized that I needed to start thinking just more about my life long term after fighting because at that point, like last year, I want to say that I sort of missed my window.
When you first started, were you a mom at that point already, or was that before?
Oh, geez, before, yeah.
How does a 19-year-old female have the confidence to go and start kickboxing or start working in MMA? Because here's the deal. A, most people don't start as an adult if they start martial arts. They
Mhm.
probably start as a kid, and then they might get more serious as they get to adult. B, it's also male dominated, right? As a 19-year-old female, what gave you the confidence or the desire to be like, hey, I'm going to punch people in the face and get kicked in the head?
Well, it wasn't really planned. I've been an athlete my whole life. I was a competitive gymnast when I was younger and then played sports. So I was very comfortable in like the training environment and just growing up a tomboy, always had to be better than the guys or just to really kind of keep up with them. So I felt very comfortable walking into the gym, and my reason for going was because my friend was teaching a kickboxing class at the time and convinced me to come for moral support because I thought it just wasn't something I was interested in. At least I didn't think. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to support you to get you off my back. And then little did I know, this like passion and love for something I had no idea that was like inside me. And I never stopped training after that day. I was like, I love this and I'm never leaving. So that's how
What
it
makes you a
happened.
tomboy?
I was just like always a dirty kid. I mean, I was born and
A
raised in
dirty
West
kid?
Virginia.
If you don't
I
shower,
was born and
if you're a
raised in
girl,
West.
that if you're
I was a country girl. I was born and raised in West Virginia, and I was just like always like when I was younger, walking around with my shirt off. Like people thought I was a boy. I was always like playing baseball, climbing
yeah.
trees. I was out like in the park, like just getting muddy, dig holes. Yeah, I just and then on top of that, I was jumping in on whatever the guys were doing. There was just always something in me that felt like I had to show them. You're strong for a girl. No, I'm beating you right now. I'm
Did
strong. Yeah.
Did you grow up with brothers?
I have one brother. Yeah. He's the oldest. I'm
Okay.
the youngest out of four. So I have a brother and
Okay.
two sisters. And then, yeah.
Okay. Because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like usually if people gravitate towards more like aggressive sports, if
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're female, usually or they're a little more tomboyish,
Mm-hmm.
they have brothers, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like for you, not really. Just you didn't shower very often, so that's the route you took.
Yeah.
Dug a
I
lot
mean,
of
I had like
holes.
my cousins and stuff too who were always like roughing me around and whatever. Yeah.
So when you started, was your family like worried about you? Oh my gosh, our girl is fighting. Do you,
100%. Nobody
how,
understood it. They're
how
like,
did
what
you
the
convince
hell?
them?
They just kind of started believing in it as I went along. In the beginning, it was like my mom was, "Do you have a plan B? What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "This is what I'm going to do. I don't need a plan B. This is what I'm deciding." And so I'm going to take it as far as I can. And at the time, women in MMA wasn't really like a thing. That's why I was boxing and kickboxing in the beginning, then transitioned when it was a little easier for us to get fights and then becoming more mainstream.
You didn't have a lot of females to compete with in the gym, and over time you had more. Like, how did that happen?
Not really. Back then it was, I mean, and this is what, 2006, 2007 ish. So it was just, no, it was women training. You'll always see it. There were like women and some, very few, who would show up for just the membership classes. But as far as fight team stuff, no, it was just me for a long time. And then as I grew in the sport, find different females around to train with. So we definitely have to cross train to get the training that we needed in.
How do you bring that up if you're like dating? Hey, I'm a fighter. Like, most people don't expect that. For me, I teach martial arts, and even that's shocking, right? I'm not an MMA fighter. I teach martial arts. I train, but I've never been in a sanctioned fight. How do you have that conversation?
I mean, to be honest, I don't really date. I don't. I mean, in the past, it's been sort of just known because I'm essentially a public figure and it's out there. A lot of times, the people I have dated in the past were like, we had mutual friends and things of that nature. So it was like they always just going into it knowing already that I was a fighter. But honestly, it's something I just like to keep to myself. Around strangers, like if I'm out with my friends or we go to dinner and someone may ask me like, oh, what do you do? Or I don't even mention it because it's just kind of a weird conversation to have with people who, first of all, don't really expect it. And then it can get kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to answer.
Even when I tell people, so obviously for a male, it's probably more not as unexpected, right? If you train in martial arts. But when I tell people I'm a black belt, or if they inquire and find out, they always say the same thing, which is, "Oh, I don't want to mess with you." Make that same joke.
Yo, I did karate when I was 5.
Yeah.
Great. Hey.
Yeah, you must have the same.
Be like, oh, exactly. Oh, don't want to mess with you, or oh, you'll kick my ass. I'm just like,
yeah, but I'm not gonna. If you keep making jokes like that, I probably will. Okay, so 19, you start kickboxing. That's cool, and I'm sure it was fun. But at what point were you like, okay, I want to actually fight. I want to get in the ring.
Oh, I knew right away. Within 6 months, I did like an amateur boxing fight, and then did some like regional like Muay Thai stuff. Yeah, I knew instantly I wanted, just because of like my background in competitive gymnastics. Like if I make a decision on what I'm going to do, I'm just like, all right, we're going to see how far I can take it. So right away, I knew. I didn't know what, I guess, a career would look like in MMA at the time. I just knew that I wanted to compete and improve and just like, enjoy it as much as possible. Like I loved it. So the more I could train, the more I could compete. Yeah, the more I would fall in love with it. So
try to convince any friends to fight with you. Hey, you should join class with me, or hey, you should do training.
I always encourage it, especially like my female friends, some of my guy friends too, but I've had some of them actually step on the mats, like they'll throw a gi on, do like a trial class or something, but it's hard to convince people to stick it out because most of the time, like your first class, it's a very humbling experience, or can be, depending on where you are at, right? There's some schools that you're not really going in for like a live role like your first class or anything like that, but even just the warm-ups can take somebody out. I just feel like some people don't really stick around long enough to see like the evolution of their progress, or like how it could be for them, and seeing it as like a way to set new goals and to learn new things. A lot of people don't get past that first like hurdle.
Yeah, I remember so I grew up doing karate, which was point karate. So it was touch, right? There wasn't much grabbing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later that I decided to try jujitsu, and I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years now. And it's, if you're not used to growing up with full contact sport, it's super humbling. And I understand why people quit in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
When you're grabbing someone and they're like pulling you into them, or vice versa, and you have no control, and they're sweaty and they smell like dirty socks. Yeah, dirty socks, like stuffed with garlic. Yeah. Then you have to be okay with that stuff, right? And I remember my first class I went to, it was kind of like an old school jiu-jitsu school, right? And I walked in, and I had never done any jujitsu before. I knew, I mean, I taught martial arts, taught karate, so I knew what jujitsu was. So I walked in and everyone's rolling and they're like, all right, whenever you're ready to get out there. And I was like, what? What am I supposed to do? I don't even know how to
What do I do
start.
with my hands? Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, I could pretend fight, but I don't know, have any idea
yeah.
how to make this work. And then they're like, oh, it's your first time? Yeah, you got to come to beginner class. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll start at 101. So do you feel like more women should do combat sports or fight MMA?
100%. I mean, I don't think it's for everybody, so I don't always encourage everybody that they should get in the ring. I would say I do encourage people who are consistently training on the mats, who are actually really great training partners for like myself and other fighters. Okay, when are you going to just check off the box? I think everybody has their own journey in this, but I always encourage women to train, to have some form of, like, whether it's jujitsu or boxing or kickboxing. I find that it's such an incredible outlet. It gives you just, you feel so empowered, and it, like, just cultivates so much confidence and self love, and just, yeah, always.
Why do you think more women don't do it?
I think there's an intimidation factor there. I think that there's not, maybe not really enough spaces for maybe just women, because sometimes women just want to train with other women and other like female instructors. You don't really see like a lot of all women schools, but I mean, I know that they're around. I hope to see more of them is all I can really say. But I think I think it's just all about really providing more spaces for women to feel comfortable going into a gym and training, for sure.
Like your favorite female UFC fighter?
I love Rose Namajunas.
I love Rose too. I have a
100%. I
huge
love
crush
her
on
so
her.
much.
Don't tell
Yeah.
my girlfriend.
She's well, you
Yeah,
just
Rose is the
did.
best. I know she doesn't listen to the podcast. It's fine. She hears enough of my voice. If there's anywhere I want to talk where I know she won't listen, it's the
Yeah.
podcast. What do you like about Rose?
She's methodical and she's really technical, which I love, but I just love her demeanor. I love that she always seems like she's at peace. And she's really, and I always appreciate that about whether you're a fighter or not, someone who you can tell when somebody has really good, deep energy and how they carry themselves. And I just love her whole vibe and who she is.
You have a self-defense program you developed.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, like I asked you, okay, so do you have a martial arts school? And you're like, no, but maybe I want to. I don't know. So tell me what you're thinking. What's stopping you from someone who's doing martial arts or doing MMA for a really long time? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why not start your own school? What's stopping you?
The start, the start
Okay.
is stopping me. I don't know. To be honest, I think it's really just like a fear thing, and not fear that I'm going to fail, because failure is my bestie. I welcome failure because for me, that's how we grow, right? As people, we make mistakes, we fail, and that's the only way we get better and improve. So it's not much about the failure. I think it's about the success of it. Like, I'm a little bit afraid of the success, and can I handle it? I'm also a perfectionist. And so I think also what's stopping me is, like, I feel like everything has to be laid out, even though I know that even if it was perfectly laid out for me, that it still wouldn't end up that way. I'm in like this weird, like, transitional phase. I know exactly what I need to do, and I know why I feel the way that I do, but I just won't pull the trigger.
Mm.
I don't know.
So it's funny because I think a lot of people understand fear of failure, but
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of people understand fear of success. And fear of success, how I like to think of it, is you fear of what you're going to have to do when you're successful, like the things and how it might change you or
Mm-hmm.
change your routine. Okay, maybe I don't see my daughter as much because I'm working on the business, even if it is doing great,
Yeah.
right? Or it changes your identity and you're worried about changing your identity, how your friends might see you now that you're run a business full time. And you
Mm-hmm.
might be unsure what they're going to say. We all have those fears, and I felt the
Mm-hmm.
same way at certain points. It's kind of like when people say, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to gain too much muscle. I don't want to be bulky, right? It's almost like saying, oh, I don't want to get a job because I'm worried I might get too rich,
Yeah.
right? So, beside, what is it about you think about maybe being successful scares you?
I think it maybe could stem from my childhood, how I grew up. My mom was ended up being a single mother with four children, and I saw her struggle, but that kind of became my identity. I always had to learn the hard way, but that was normalized for me. This is how you're supposed to do things. My mom was in survival mode, then I kind of was always in survival mode, and it became just a way of life for me. I mean, not so much now.
Do you think your comfort level is in survival zone? And like, you wonder how your life would be different if you're not in survival zone, because that's
Probably.
kind
But
of,
then I have this like desire to just be more, like it's in me to do more, to be more. But because, okay, I didn't get exactly to where I wanted to be, like in MMA in my career, but I did do a lot, right? I accomplished a lot. I made a name for myself, and I was able to help a lot of people through building that platform. And I'm able to help people now through like my knowledge and my expertise. And now I'm able to carry that over into like my advocacy work and community, which I love so much. And I know that this would just be another great avenue that I could take to bring the community together even more and have the space for it, and providing like awesome things for our youth and like different programs there. So it's like I have all these ideas that would be incredible, but then I'm like, "Ugh, I know what it is too." Light bulb just went off. It's just me. I don't have who, yeah, I don't think I have anybody else right now. If I wanted to go open a gym, I don't have anybody I would open a gym with, somebody to help me. I think that
hmm.
also scares the shit out of me.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's important you get help. Just like if you're going to start an MMA career, you're not going to be
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm just going to watch YouTube videos,
Right.
right? You get a trainer, right?
Maybe
And you
a
went to
few
a gym.
YouTube videos.
Oh, some YouTube videos can be helpful. I watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
I got that. I don't want to brag, but I got that YouTube Premium. It's a life changer.
Oh, I love it. I'm a little
Yeah,
jealous.
right. Can you share your password with me? Yeah. So I just like anything else, I think you find someone who's done it, who does it,
Mhm.
and that you vibe with, and does it the way that you would want to do it,
Mhm.
and use their model, whether that's me or anyone else, right, on the internet
Mhm.
that you might find who could be helpful for you. Because
Yeah.
no matter, I mean, we opened, my brother started a martial arts franchise called Action Karate, and we have 34 locations,
Mm.
right?
Oh, wow.
So we'll take people in who have zero martial arts experience,
Mhm.
and we'll train them, and then eventually they'll become like school operators and instructors and owners. They got
That's
to learn the martial arts
amazing.
side, they got to learn the business side, but they're
Mhm.
coming from scratch. And if you go back, if you're listening to this right now, and you're like, hey, I want to hear something like that, I have other episodes. One with, her name is Dr. Dags. It might say D'Agostino on there, but she has her PhD, and she gave up her career in that because she wasn't feeling like she's fulfilled in the way she wanted to feel fulfilled, and then she started teaching martial arts full time, and then became a school owner, right?
That's
And it
awesome.
was only because she had people around her that she joined martial arts just like anyone else because they loved it. It was only because she had other people around her that empowered her and helped her, and now
Mhm.
that's what she does full time. Okay, so let's say you did have a blueprint in front of you. You're like, okay, this is the way to do it. This is how much money you'll need. This is how you can set up your classes, curriculum. This is how to find a site. I guess my question is, like, let's say you even did have that blueprint, right? And you did have someone to help you. Would you be like, okay, I'm going to do this? Or do you think there'd be some other part of you that's like almost sabotaging yourself because you grew up in survival mode, don't deserve that life, you
Yeah.
know?
To be honest, I would, yeah, if I had the proper support here. This is like the obvious next step. I think a lot of it has to do with not having that support because there's so much that I don't know, like on the back end of it when it comes to business and things. And I know with anything, you learn as you go. The mistakes are going to be there. You learn, but I think in those beginning stages, I but if I had all that, if I had a true partner, I would start 100%. I would start tomorrow. Yeah.
So when you say partner, you mean someone who opened it with you, or someone who showed you the route you should go and gave you direction? Those are two different things.
I think someone who showed me the route, but I would be open to a partnership eventually. But yeah, I mean, I think either or because it's something I've been wanting to do. So if it was somebody who could show me the way and be a great partner, let's do it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we'll have to talk after this episode because like I help martial arts school owners grow organically, not from where your position is right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I know there's other people who help people from the ground up. But I can at least point you in the right direction of like people who put out free advice online. Like, hey, follow this person for this
Yeah.
type of business advice within martial arts
Mm-hmm.
specifically, right? Because people who listen to this podcast are mainly martial arts school instructors, owners, and operators. And they listen because they want advice from other martial arts school owners or people like you to hear like your martial arts like
Mm-hmm.
story and like what is the mindset that someone might have when they start or don't start, right? Because
Right.
sometimes even right now I'm in the middle of the process of this. Like we recruited a instructor from South Africa in Johannesburg,
Mm-hmm.
and he is a kickboxing champion. Okay, in
Amazing.
Johannesburg, he's a badass. He also did like sport karate too,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just a badass. Like he has 4
Mm-hmm.
world titles,
Oh, nice.
South African title. He's awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and we were friends on social media. Somehow he found me. We started chatting one day, and I was like, "Hey, like we are always looking for really good people in our system. Would you ever want to join?" And he was like, "Yeah, but I live in South Africa." I was like, "Oh, well, there's nothing I could do to help you." But then I was like, you know what? Let me investigate further. And I did a lot of online searching, attended some webinars, and
Mm-hmm.
then I hired an attorney. And the last year and a half, I've spent hundreds of hours and probably around twelve to $15,000 figuring out the process to get him here with a special work visa as an
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary person, someone who can really benefit the culture and the people of the United States. And he's coming here in 2 weeks, and
That's
he'll be here. Yeah.
amazing.
So
Congrats. That's
thank you.
awesome.
It was a huge risk. We got
Yeah.
rejected multiple times, and I really thought it was not going to happen. Like,
Mm.
well, I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time, but at least I tried to help this person.
Yeah.
And then on our last Hail Mary,
Mm.
they approved. I could not believe it. I didn't think it was going to happen. So yeah, now he's coming over here, and
Awesome.
he's gonna run one of our locations full time and martial arts career. And he's in a situation where he's just like stepping into the position. Like he's just
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, I'm here because we opened it up for him. But we're always looking for people who have passion in a career but don't want to start a business from
Mm-hmm.
scratch. What they'll do is they will start as an instructor, learn, and we teach them the business systems and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll open up a location within our family of schools on their own. So that way they can have, or we'll sell them equity in the location that they work at. That way they can be an owner and they can be an instructor and have someone teach them everything. And that's how we have so many
Yeah.
schools because we like really help people have whatever life they want. They could be an instructor forever or they could be an owner, like whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. And
Uh,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Everybody starts somewhere. Like we know
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I'm sort of like having more realizations, work sort of working in this gym now where I'm at. Because I, for one, just needed a home base. I needed the space to just like, do my thing and build my clientele through there. Because so like my MMA school is like a 20-minute drive. I live in Center City. My MMA school is in North Philly. And so because my network and my community is all like centralized in Center City, it doesn't make sense for me like to work outside of that. So I'm realizing that it's all about convenience for city people. We know this. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
I found this gym that's literally like a 10-minute walk from my house and it's great, but I was going through the numbers with my cousin because he's like, all right, well, you've built this program, like you have your curriculum. So what are you going to do with it? Like now at this gym until like you figure out what your next steps are going to be. And I'm like, okay, well, like realizing how they just want to pay me like an instructor fee for teaching my own program or getting like like a small percentage of like I don't know, I'm having a hard time with that. But when it comes to mine, because he's like, okay, well, here you can get like a base instructor fee teaching classes. He's like, or think about the amount of people you would have in a class. Those memberships are going into your pocket. You're not just getting paid. Like, so when I'm like doing the numbers and thinking about it now, I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, what
Yeah.
am I waiting for? This is so stupid. I'm in high demand. Like people, that's the always the number one question I get when I'm doing my work, when people are reaching out to me, hey, like, where's your gym? Like, where can I come train with you? And I'm like, I mean, now I have a home base, but before that, I mean, this is all very recent, which kind of sucks because I don't want to say I'm losing clients. I am to a certain extent, but I feel like once I do open my own place, like they're going to come. But I feel
Mhm.
like right now I am losing out on that.
Is it okay if I offer an alternative perspective way to think about it?
Yeah, please.
And I only say this from experience, and not fact in your situation. But one of my schools has an upstairs training area.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a couple times where we've let people rent out the upstairs training area
Mm-hmm.
for like yoga or some other similar
Right.
fitness thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Pilates or something. What's the one that's like dancing?
Zumba.
Zumba, that's what it was. Zumba, right? And we have a couple different people that
Yeah.
come to us and they say, hey, I want to run out in your space. I've been working out of a gym for a long time. I have a big following there. They've always asked me, hey, can I come to your gym? Or do you going to open up one? I've always said no, but now I want to do my own thing. And this is like a good stepping stone. I'll rent out the
Mm-hmm.
space at a school. It'll be my program. And every single one thinks that people are going to start showing up just because they have their own thing, but they don't. You know why they go to their class? Because it's convenient and it's already at the gym they already attend membership to.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not necessarily willing to pay another membership or travel or be inconvenienced to go to this person. Will they get some people? Yes. But all the people that I've had have flamed out pretty quickly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what they don't understand is, it, and what I do understand from a business owner's perspective, is that the teaching the class and creating a good customer experience is important. The harder part is the infrastructure and the lead
Mm-hmm.
generation to get people to actually go and enroll and stay at that
Mm-hmm.
place. Right. So I think for you, yeah, you're somewhere else and you're not pocketing maybe all the money, but there's a lot that you don't have to do, right? There's a lot of risk you don't have to take. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of expenses you don't have, right? And if you're willing to risk all that and take the jump, I think you should, based on how our conversation is going right now. And I just think you need to find the right person to help you, which I'm hopefully maybe can point you in the right direction. It's not like all the people that say, yeah, I'm gonna come show up and I'm gonna come train with you. It's not really gonna happen. You're gonna have to almost start from scratch. There might be a couple. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some people that love you, want to train with you, but yeah, I'm sure there's a couple. But there's not going to be this giant wave of,
Right.
oh, I have 25 new members. Right? Oh, I have two,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone else I have to go recruit.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the hard part, and that's the scary part. Anyone can run a program with like 15 or 20 people, but when you want to have like many more people than that, which is what you really need, you need
Mm-hmm.
at least 50 to 100 to have like a viable, okay business. Then unless you're training MMA fighters like specifically for fighting, that's different. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about a commercialized school that people are doing it for fun and fitness, not for competitive, because that's like a different model. Then you're really going to have to fight for those people and learn business skills. Got to be, if you're going to run a small business, you got to know accounting skills, you got to know marketing skills, you got to know sales skills, you got to know how to like fix things. Like when I say fix things, that doorknob breaks and like, oh crap, I can't afford $200 to have a handyman come here and fix it. Crap, I better just fix it on my. And you got to learn those skills,
Yeah.
right? So there's so much you have to learn. So sometimes it's better to be at someone else's place at least for a while to
Mm-hmm.
learn and see what you can pick up from them. Hey, hey, can I do this part of it? Hey, can I shadow you for this? That way you're not making the mistakes on your dime,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can start it on your own afterwards. But
Mm-hmm.
even then, there's even with the best blueprint in the entire world, even with the most someone who has a ton of experience, you're still gonna fall into traps and encounter issues. What I always say is, for me, when I'm training one of my staff members, and maybe they're an instructor, then eventually they became like a business partner of mine, like an equity partner.
Mm-hmm.
They bought into the business, and something happens. Some people quit, and they're having a lot of quits that month, or there's all of a sudden a pipe leaking from the ceiling during class, and they have
Mm-hmm.
to and like literally just trashes the mat, right? Or like we had the other day, a kid who gets upset and runs out of the martial arts school, and his grandfather, he's older, so he can't run after him. This kid just ran away, literally just ran away.
Oh no.
Yeah, terrifying. And for me, like that's scary for me. I wasn't there at the
That's
time,
scary.
right?
Yeah.
But like I have grown callous to challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
I care about them or it doesn't bother me. But you just grow some callous because you've gone through it so many times, so many different issues. Like, oh, this is just
Mm-hmm.
another issue. I'll figure it out. It's fine.
Yeah.
Now that one was extra scary because literally we didn't know where this kid went. And he just
So what
disappeared.
did you do? What happened? Like, how did
Yeah,
you
so
find?
we called the police,
Oh my gosh.
and this kid was apparently like when he gets in trouble, he's like a
Mm-hmm.
runner, and he was in trouble for misbehaving,
Uh,
and he ran, and he was found 2 miles away.
2 miles?
Yes, I literally cannot believe it.
That is
This kid
terrifying.
was like 8 or something,
Oh.
and it was like in the moment. Like he just ran. Instructors like sees the grandfather go out after them, and like, okay, I guess he's gonna get him. And like they didn't know that he was gonna jet away, and the grandfather wasn't gonna be able to help. And the grandfather came back and like, can't find him. And they called the police and blah blah. The whole process, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a business owner, you're like, holy crap, did I just lose it? And what are you supposed to do about that? Like,
Right,
you
right,
can't prevent someone just jetting out the door and running away from their family, right?
right, right.
But you grow callous over time, just like I'm sure a grown callous getting punched in the face or choked,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, someone's got your back and a rear naked, and you're like taking deep breaths, and it's no big deal, right? Well, someone else might
Mm-hmm.
be panicking.
Yeah.
So one of the other things you talked about, you mentioned living in a shelter for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and you were subject to abuse. I don't know any details more than an Instagram post that I
Sure.
read. So tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about like why that's important to you, what it is, and what happened.
Sure. To give you a brief backstory, my daughter was 4 at the time, and my relationship was abusive the whole time we were together. So that was around 6.5 years. And so it always gets worse. And it just finally got to a point where it was getting so bad that we ended up having to flee our situation, and that led to us being homeless because I don't have family here. I don't have any relatives, anybody in Philadelphia. Everybody's in Cincinnati, and so that made things really difficult. And because we had a custody agreement already in place, I couldn't just relocate without going through the proper process. And so, yeah, we were homeless, and then I learned about just different resources that were available to me, and Women Against Abuse being one of them, which is Philly's leading domestic violence service provider. They operate two emergency safe havens, like two emergency shelters. And I found myself at one of those. So we lived there for 4 months, and I was able to just utilize all the resources and everything available to me and was able to rebuild my life. And during the time I was at the shelter, I realized that part of taking my power back was to do all the things that I wasn't allowed to do, all the things that were taken away from me. Training and pursuing my goals was one of those things. And so I started just showing up at the gym again and
Your
training.
partner didn't like that.
No, not when we were together. Even
What
though
was it
he
that
was also a fighter. He was a well known fighter. He fought in the UFC, and yeah, on his way to becoming like a pretty big name. He just didn't like that I was receiving attention, any kind of attention he didn't like. So it got to the
hmm,
point where going to the gym became a problem because he was convinced that I was getting some form of attention that he wouldn't approve of, which wasn't the case at all. And so for me, in an effort to just avoid any confrontation with him, I stopped training. I stopped pursuing what made me happy. So when we were at the shelter, I'm like, I'm going to start getting myself back. And so started training again. And I was, even though the martial arts community, like my gym, people knew we had broken up, but they didn't know that I was in a shelter with my daughter. And I didn't let it be known at the time because I wanted my situation to be something that I overcame on my own. Like I knew I was supported and surrounded by my team, my coaches, and I could lean into them if I wanted to, but I just didn't want people feeling sorry for me. I didn't want to fall into that victim mode. So I kept that quiet for quite a while. just showed up, trained, and then everything I gained from just showing up, like, just really gave me everything I needed off the mats, everything I was dealing with in my personal life. It gave me just all the fuel and strength that I needed. And my confidence started coming back. I started gaining weight, like my weight back. So going into the shelter, I weighed 95 pounds. I was,
Oh my God.
yeah. But, and then once you start seeing the life come back, and yeah, I was just like, just kept building on that fuel and the motivation. And then you see yourself improving. There was something that had happened. Well, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So actually, there was a night where I had this realization that I knew I always wanted to give back to this organization, or to just this cause in general. I felt like there was like like a direct intersection between what we were going through, and then the best way to get through that, without always leaning into programs or resources, which are always great. But I feel like once you move past that, like, you still need to have the tools within yourself. You need to have everything you need to be able to sustain a healthy life moving forward. And so I was getting all those things from martial arts. And so there was a night where we were supposed to have one night a week. There was like different activities. And one activity was supposed to be like a Zumba class. We have like a VHS. You pop in the little there's like old roller TVs you use in class. That's what we had, and
Oh
like
yeah.
Zumba tape. And nobody did it, but we all would just sit around and like chat. But it was like, yeah. And I was thinking, like, this would actually be a great opportunity to bring some type of program here. And I remember the conversation. My mom said, listen, we got to get you out of there first. Let's do you, like, let's get you to a good place first, and then have the conversation later. So that always was just on my heart, heavy, for a long time. So once I transitioned out of the shelter, about a year later, I won the title for King of the Cage on short notice fight. They brought me in to feed the wolf, and my opponent was number one in California. She was on the cusp of getting into the UFC. Current champion. She was like a bulldog. And everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? And I hadn't fought in years. I was 1-0 at the time. Nobody knew who I was. And I went in there and knocked her out in the 4th round and took the belt home. And then after that, the following year was when I went back to Women Against Abuse and said, hey, I think this would be a benefit to the clients, and just providing a space filled with just empowerment and self-care, because we really try to dive deep into that, and creating things where the clients can have just that time for themselves that they need to heal, and just meditate, reflect, things like that. And actually I had a partner. So when I started the program, I had a partner who came to the safe haven with me. She would keep the children occupied so that those who were mothers could just have that uninterrupted time for themselves to just work hard and exercise and feel great. So yeah, but through that, I don't know if I'm getting a little bit scattered here or not, but the organization began calling me to share my story on just different platforms with some of our elected officials and other events. And just the more I shared, the more it resonated with people and made a pretty big impact. And just from there, I was building my career, dove headfirst into advocacy, and then it's just been building ever since. And now I'm doing some really big things in Philly now, where I'm creating programs that are around both just domestic violence and public safety in partnership with law enforcement. I found that it all kind of just, I guess, intersects with each other. And I find that domestic violence is public safety, community is public safety. And what can I do to bring the community together and help bridge the gap between community members and law enforcement in a positive, happy atmosphere, and where community members can feel comfortable asking questions and, okay, how do these processes work? And why, just whatever the case may be. So we're actually kicking off a big event next month, which I'm really excited about. We were endorsed by some of our city council members and state representatives.
Cool.
And it's been awesome. So,
Can I ask you like a mentality question? Just because I want to understand when you said the abuse started like in the beginning of the relationship,
mhm.
right? Did you recognize it was abuse at that time, or was it later you figured out, oh, that's what was happening this whole time?
Yeah, later. 'Cause in the
Later.
beginning, yeah, in the beginning, we all know like if something's wrong, like you don't hit somebody else, especially a man hitting a woman. But I chalked up a lot of his behavior as, okay, well, he's gone through a lot in his childhood. Maybe he's stressed. And because a lot of people are like, well, why go for somebody like that if they're so abusive? Well, they don't really show you at first sight or when you first start dating that who they really are. They put on this facade that make you fall in love. There's like love bombing, and that's who you think they are. And so you take the behaviors that they show, which is turns out who they really are, like all of the narcissism, the abusive, and you make that and you justify their behavior as like something else. And you're hoping that the person they showed you from in the very beginning parts is who they are, and you're just hoping that person will resurface. I hope that
Hmm.
makes sense. But
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
Flee. How did you make that decision? What finally gave you the courage to be like, I'm out of here?
Um, Honestly, I don't know. I felt just a voice, like something in me. And it wasn't like, I just knew I no longer wanted to raise my daughter in that environment. And I was exhausted. I just couldn't anymore. I could not, I couldn't take it. And it was at a point where he was away working on a construction site and we were home. It was actually Mother's Day. And my daughter and I were at a picnic, and he's calling me and just kind of the typical, just like starts creating confrontation and wants to argue and all the things. And at this point, like in the past, I would have apologized just to get past the argument, even if it wasn't my fault. Just to be like, okay, whatever, you're right, I'm sorry. What, like, just to get through it. And at this point, I was so exhausted that I was like, I don't know what you want from me, was my response. I was just very indifferent. He didn't like that. He wanted that reaction out of me and he wasn't getting it. So he was becoming more irate. And, but on top of it all, his mental health had already been declining at that point where I felt unsafe on a daily basis and just never
Mm.
knowing how he was going to wake up. And then how do you prepare for that? Sorry. Glue. It's okay. Love you. Um, and so, like, how do you prepare yourself, like, on a daily basis, walking on eggshells, constantly defending yourself? And then are things going to get physical? Just, I don't know. It's just so, anyway, something in me was just like, okay. I ended up calling my mom that day and telling her what was happening. And she was under the impression that things were fine between us because that was another facade I put up myself to lead family and friends to believe that I was not in the situation I was in. And it also helped me get through it.
Mm.
I was kind of like in this pretend world. And so my mom said, well, why don't you come down because we were supposed to be going to a friend's wedding that following weekend. So my mom suggested that we leave for the trip early, which at the time didn't have any intention of leaving and not coming back. I knew that there was a court process if this was the decision I was going to make, and decided not to tell him till we were on the train leaving because in fear that he would find a way back and then to not let me leave because that's happened in the past, his
Mm.
history. So from that point, he kind of just, I knew I was going to make the decision, but he kind of made it for me when he began just threatening me. And I felt like I didn't feel safe at one point to even come home because of, the threats and his mental health and just like all the things. So at the end of it, he ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis on top of drugs that I didn't know he was consuming and steroids. And so imagine all of this undiagnosed. He's manic and crazy on a daily basis and hearing voices, and what are these voices telling him to do, or what will they tell him to do? Like, why? A lot of this I learned like after the fact, like when, I mean, so much happened, like even in the family court system, that is a whole other story and of its own, a battle I had to fight where, me going into the family courts hoping that this is a safe space where I'm going to feel protected. My daughter is going to be priority. And I learned that it's a complete opposite. And your
Mm.
abusers will use the court system to abuse their victims as well. And they paint bad pictures. I was painted as like the poor Black woman that lived in a shelter that couldn't provide for her child. And judges went with that. And it was the upper hand for him for a while. And for me, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was just about what was right and best for my daughter, and obviously for my safety as well. No matter how agreeable I was to whatever he wanted, I just wanted things to just kind of level out. We could be on even playing field and co-parent, do all the things, but you can't reason with an abuser or a narcissist. All narcissists are abusive, I guess. But yeah, it was just one of those things where you just, you can't, yeah, there's no reason to rhyme with someone like that. And unfortunately, when it's in the hands of the judges or the court system, it's kind of like a toss up. You just never know at which point it's going
Mm.
to land. And it only got to the point where, I mean, this was years after fighting for custody, that the neglect and things that my daughter had to experience, and it required me, because it was getting scary. He was hearing voices in the walls. He thought drones were flying by their windows. Like, I was afraid for her life. I was afraid, and it happens every day where children don't make it out of these relationships. That I know that if I wasn't just banging on every door possible, just like I was like filing stuff every single day to get this like emergency petition granted so that I could get a court hearing, and finally I got one. The judge that we finally went before took one look at our case and canceled his docket for the rest of the day. So we were his first and last his first and last case of that day. He went over, it was 8 hours of interviews, testimony, just reviewing all of like the evidence of everything. And that's
Damn.
in years. It was so unnecessary. And it wasn't like I was trying to take her away. Like, yeah, give him a chance to get well, mental health assessments, whatever he needs to do to be well and to be a fit father for my daughter. Like, it just, but for him, it was just anything he could do to hurt me. He would use my daughter to try to inflict pain. Anything he could do to stir up, to maintain control of the situation. I felt like the more he was losing control, the more dangerous he became. And so, but it finally took that one judge, finally, after 3 years of trying to get somebody to see his mental health and also like the abuse history and how it all intertwined with each other. And because you get judges who didn't really care about the history, they care about the now and moving forward. And it's, well, you have to look at the history because that's how we got to where we're at. Like, you have to look at it. And so it just, yeah, a lot of like backward stuff, a lot of just one good thing would be followed by 20 really terrible bad things that I would have to fight back from, and just to try to get my daughter in a healthy, like normal environment. It just was, yeah, it was pretty terrible. But it got to the point where the judge gave him a chance to do what he needed to do. And then our final hearing, I was given sole physical legal custody of my daughter, and which I felt was the right choice. And yeah, so
Well, for your daughter's sake and your sake, I'm glad you were able to get the help you need and now
yeah.
able to support a cause that has helped you tremendously. So thank you for sharing that story and for putting it out there. For anyone that wants to reach out to you, talk about women in martial arts or fighting, or maybe getting help if they're in a scary situation, how do they find you?
Sure. So my Instagram at Bad Mama. So it's BAD_MAMA. That's open door. Anybody can reach out to me there. It's usually my the primary contact. And yeah, or if somebody needs help or resources, just direct them to womenagainstabuse.org or just to the National Domestic Violence website. They have all of the national numbers. You could call that and they can connect you locally, or you can just simply, do a Google search for organizations within your community, and you can reach out to people there through their hotlines.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. My name is Matthew Brenner. I'm with Double Your Dojo. If you want to grow your martial arts school, specifically get 60 new students in 16 weeks without ads, so grow your school organically without depending on sending more money to Mark Zuckerberg and praying that you get high quality leads, but instead you just get a bunch of people that don't answer the phone or don't live in your area, you could visit wyourdojo.com or send me an email, matthew@wyourdojo.com, or Instagram @blackbeltbrenner1. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you.